side. On the other hand, I'll contradict myself and say that especially senior citizens want this so much that it may become a battleground for seniors throughout the nation, to the point with seniors with other allies, people who feel that this is right, will remind people of the voting bloc. And so if it doesn't happen now, I suspect that for the 2002 congressional elections, this will be the issue.
You know, one thing that really amazes me is the fact that there are those people who say that so far as the tax cut is concerned, that they want to give money back to the people. Well, if you spend money on some of these programs, aren't you giving it back to the people as well?
Absolutely. Well, you know, I'm one of those who respects Congress and respects the institution. There are some people that may not be fit to be in the institution, but so be it.
That's belong in an institution.
Exactly. You know, that's the way it is with any part of our society. But there are a lot of people lately, in the last, I would say, 3 or 4 congressional elections who've been elected, running against Congress. And so, well, we don't know what we're doing here. Give this money back to the people. But, you know, but the people want roads built. And the people want hospitals taken care of. And the people want education. And I know no one ever says this, or nobody wants to remind people, but when you've had polls where you've asked people, surveys, and said, would you like $500,000 more back in your pocket every year through a tax cut, or would you like senior citizens to get a lunch, or would you like poor kids to get a school lunch, or would you like more housing for people who need it? Even if they're not speaking about themselves, most people say, no, I'd rather, you know, do what you have to do. I mean, Americans are not cold-blooded people. Well, and not caring.
It isn't even a question of philanthropy. It is just actually beneficial for everyone on an overall basis.
If you educate a person who ordinarily you might have looked over, that person becomes a taxpayer and makes your society and your burden perhaps less. I mean, if you think you're paying a lot of taxes now, imagine how much you would be paying if we hadn't spent some money educating people so that they would become taxpayers.
You know, we were talking about Social Security before. I believe a recent study came out that said that a child born today will have a life expectancy of about 120. Now, what will that do to the Social Security system?
It's a wonderful problem, but it is a problem, and it's something we have to deal with now. We're capable of doing it. We could do it. I mean, it's amazing. You know, I was talking to a person that plays baseball, and I said, you know, were the players really better in those days, or are they better today? What he said is they live longer today, so they can play till they're 40-something, and they're stronger, and they're bigger. And so, you know, that's great. We celebrate all that, but that presents challenges for the future. So the big question is really a simple question. Do you hand back a couple of dollars to someone who doesn't need it? Do you hand back a lot of money, in some cases, to people who don't need it? Or do you do both? You hand some money back to the public and then invest some of that money in the future by paying down the debt, by building schools, by repairing schools, and securing Social Security.
Well, I have to secure some time from you for a moment for our local stations, and we'll be back to you right after that. We've been talking to Congressman Jose Serrano of the 16th District, New York.
Home of the Yankees.
Well, you know something very interesting. I used to work for the Bronx Home News, which was a newspaper up there many years ago.
Sure.
But newspapers generally seem to have disappeared from the horizon for some reason or other.
Well, you know, I'm as guilty as everybody else. I read more newspapers than I used to read 5 years ago. Except that 80% of newspapers I read online. I read on the computer. But then I'm also able to get newspapers I couldn't get ordinarily. I read the Detroit Free Press to follow a couple of guys I know on the Detroit Tigers. You know, I read the Hartford Courant online. You know, there are different papers you read now you didn't have access to, but you're not reading the paper. I don't know if that counts.
I know you're an avid baseball fan. What about the Yankees? What's going to happen to them?
Well, you know, the Yankees, first of all, professionally, they remind me of the Yankees of old. They don't look as strong as people think they should, but somehow when September and October comes around, they find a way. That's a tradition. Big controversy is whether or not they move.
Yeah.
And as you know, the mayor just came out with a plan to invite the Olympics, but some of us smell in that plan a new stadium to invite the Yankees to come in. And so the governor, to his credit, came out and said, I love the Olympics. I want them in New York City. I want them in our state. But if it means the Yankees move for a new stadium, I'm not for it. And I think he just became a darling in the Bronx.
Joe, one aspect, we've been talking recently about the whole relationship that we have with Cuba as a result of some of the elements that were brought in by that young boy that came here. What is the situation in Congress now with aid to Cuba or relations with Cuba? What is the situation?
Well, you hit it right on the head. The Elian Gonzalez issue saw a lot of people, a few people in Miami, come across as so negative that the American people did two things. One, they said, why are they so negative? Why are they so angry? And then a lot of people in this country said, what is it with Cuba? I thought Castro was dead, or I thought Cuba was our friend. I mean, people were not paying attention to it. So in turn, they start to pay attention. That opened the door for some legislation that I and other people had presented to be worked on in Congress. And so my bill, which we discussed on this show on a couple of occasions, to allow the sale of food and medicine to Cuba, the sale of food and medicine, which had close to 180 co-sponsors, all of a sudden became wording on a bill. And when that came to the House floor, and when a lifting of the travel ban to Cuba came on the House floor, both received over 300 votes, with Republicans presenting it on the House floor. Mm-hmm. The whip of the Republican Party, Tom DeLay, in a unique and bizarre situation, has held up that bill, has held up that language on the agriculture appropriations bill. And as we speak, there's a battle going on between the House and the Senate as to what will be the future of that. And it's the first time anyone can remember, and I'm speaking to some of the old bulls, as we call them, been around a long time, that the House voted twice for two related issues with over 250, 300 votes, and the leadership is bottled up and are not allowed to come. And it's because everyone thinks that they're the one that's going to win the Florida vote or the South Florida vote. Here's what happened, and here's the big change. Some time ago, I said to a group of people that the embargo against Cuba would end when Wall Street says it ends. Well, I didn't realize that Wall Street was American farmers only. They've come forward, and they've said, wait a minute. The Cubans buy $800 million in rice from Asia. We grow rice. They buy $600 million in pork, $500 million or $600 million in chicken, and on, corn. This is what the Cubans are buying now, a couple of $1 billion. The Cuban government officials have told me, personally, that they would gladly buy it from the United States. One, because it's closer, fresher, cheaper, and in a rare compliment to the U.S., because we're in a Cold War here. We don't compliment them, they don't compliment us. They said, and better. So why shouldn't we sell to them? That's food. Then you have medicine, because Cuba has an excellent healthcare delivery system with a shortage of medicine. Their case is similar to what I spoke to about before. They have great hardware in education, sports and recreation, which we know about through the Olympics, and healthcare. But they have a shortage of software, medicine, syringes, gauze, stitching material for operations, bats, gloves, paper, pens, pencil. So why not take what they've accomplished, help them with what they need? It's good business for us, and it's good politics.
What really, is it just politics that's